had this problem where I couldn't even buy an Acme punch. And so I did the research into the patents behind this and its shape. And I realized that I could actually use one of these, which is a TruLam. The number is 3943 1520. It is a 3-in-1 hole punch that essentially is designed for what are they called? Badges and name tags and stuff like that. So they're actually pretty robust. They can do several pages. I found a lot of Acme punches are a little fragile and can only do maybe about 10 at a time because a lot of them are antiques. This can do about 20 sheets of 20-pound paper, which is normal printer paper. It takes a few more steps, but this costs about $30 versus $1,000 or $500, and that's if you can even buy an Acme punch. So this is sort of a alternative, especially because now these days this is usually the starting tool. Like, students tend to start on paper and then they graduate to a Wacom tablet like a Cintiq or something. So it can be quite a bit expensive unless you're running a traditional animated studio. Alright, so the first step you're going to want to do is you're going to want to unlock the back. You sort of push it down here and you turn this dial so this locks it. That unlocks it. Don't force it the first time. First time I got frustrated because it wouldn't open, and that was just me being dumb. Now on the top there's a selector, and it doesn't really show up very well on camera, but the center here is our circle punch. And so now what we're going to want is this thing. This comes with the punch, and it's essentially a measure that helps you do the two different types of slots. So since we're using US letter, US letter paper, we're going to set this to 11 inches. There we go. And then let's do one trial sheet of paper. And this is very important. It's to make sure that the outside is very clear of any obstructions, like little circle dots or things left over from the previous punches. They can get in the way and they can cause your punches to be misaligned, and that will not work unless you can consistently misalign all your things, and that's just not going to happen. So let's move this back to circle, and then since we set this to 11 inches, this will punch immediately in the center of 11 inches. So at 6.5, no, 5.5, yes, 5.5 inches. And then there we go. Now we have our circle. Now for the other side, you take it out, you flip it around so the slot side is facing you. Put it in, and for this, I forget exactly what the math is, but the number is essentially at 3 inches. And part of that has to do with now we're trying to, I don't quite remember how the math works, I'm sorry. But somehow it works for 8.5 by 11. Oh, I forgot to change it, but I don't think that will affect us because the punch is on this side. So there we go. Now we have our slot punch next to my mistake circle punch. And now for the last part, you just flip it over. And there we go. That looks, oh, hold on. I'm recording this upside down, so it's hard for me to figure it out. All right, so this is this looks about right. And so now we have our ACME peg bar. We'll put it on, and you'll see that it goes, even with our circle mistake right here. So now that we know that it works, I recommend doing it more in bulk, doing closer to 20 sheets. So let's go back to 11 inches on this. Now here's the part where you want to make sure it's clear of obstructions. Then of course you just make your punch. There we go. And then we switch to the other side. So for US letter, we're going to move it down to 3 inches. And of course, we're going to change our setting to slot. Get your paper in. Make sure it's not obstructed. Make sure it goes all the way to the ends. And then punch. And then for the next bit, see, it can easily be obstructed. Now for the next bit, let's flip it over. And it's exactly right. Which is why it's important for the circle to be centered. Because when we start putting this onto the ACME board, or the peg bar, it's going to be a very snug fit. It's just bigger than the standard for the peg bar. I was able to get this to work on 14-inch paper. The only difference is that for the circle slot, I had to extend the scale that they give us by about 1 more inch in this scale. This is not 1 inch wide. These are maybe about 1/2 inch each, and that represents a full inch because it's trying to cut it in half. So it doesn't want to advance by full inches. It wants to advance by 1/2 inches. So I believe this would essentially be a 7-inch point. Which I'm sure you can just measure in and mark on a piece of paper. I haven't played too much with that. And then for the slot part on 14-inch paper, I just set the bottom part to 6 inches. There are some benefits. This is very snug on the peg bar, so you don't really need a rubber band so much, but otherwise, for the most part, it's pretty much the same results. And really, ultimately, that's what we're looking for, is just to make sure it gets on the peg bar, it's not squirrely and ruining your registration, and it's something affordable and accessible to animation students and animators who don't have a full studio or any reason to, because honestly with this, other than saving time, you kind of have to balance, is essentially paying 3% of the cost of $1,000 ACME punch, worth the time that it costs. And if you're a large studio and you're doing thousands and thousands of frames and thousands of reams of paper, then yeah, maybe you do want to spend $1,000 on an ACME punch if you can find them. But otherwise, this little card slot punch will work.